Welcome to the first training video. I thought before we get into thin sectioning, we should really talk a little bit about good sampling and good sampling equipment, because really that's where it all starts. If I get a good sample through, then I can pretty much guarantee that I'm going to be able to produce a section. And I thought what would be useful is to point out what is really the best material to sample in. And I'm afraid it is the Kubiena tin. Nothing better. I mean, it pretty much can sample anything but loose sand. But besides that, this is pretty much a guarantee that you're going to get a nice undisturbed sample. Pushes into the section walls brilliantly. You've got your back lid after you sample, and of course, you can see if you need to pack your material with tissue or a little bit of cling film. Wrap the cling film around and then put your top on, parcel tape, and then put your details of what it is and the top to the base of the profile. Guaranteed really to come through undisturbed to the lab. So I'd always recommend spending a little bit of money to get yourself a supply of Kubienas. I really would. Alternatively, if you can't or you're in a rush for time, I would always recommend everybody to bring to the field the good old monolith tin. Much for the same reasons. It's nice and rigid. It can sample a larger block of sediment. And the advantage of the monolith actually is that you now have a large sediment block. Bring it to the lab, unwrap it, and you can sample with your Kubiena. Not rushed for time. You can document and measure, and everything is a little bit better when you're doing it in the lab. But of course, the other great advantage of the monolith is not only can you take your samples, but you've got enough sediment to sample for soil sediment geochemistry. Beautiful. Beautiful way to work, really. And I'd always recommend doing geochemistry associated with your samples to get that level of detail on what's going on. It's going to look great, and it shows within a research master's or PhD you're using your science available to you. So those are my top of the list. I suppose the things that I've seen successfully also come through are what is called a Tyvec container, which is really purchased in a grocery store. They're juice boxes or small milk boxes, just a little bit larger than the Kubiena. And it's made out of foil and it's a cling film almost type protection layer over the foil within the box. So it's rigid, fairly rigid. You can cut away the face of the box and use it just like a Kubiena, but it is also far better when you go to saw your samples. Imagine cutting through your aluminum box as opposed to a little wax box. Much easier, much easier. And it will work for, like a Kubiena. But of course, I am aware that you have to be careful of your materials. Again, it's when we get into dry sands that almost any container is going to have a problem. Okay, foil takeaway containers, they just about can bring a good sample in if you're very good at cutting around your sample, pushing the foil container onto your block, and actually using the flexibility of the foil container to grab the sample out of section. It can work on the right sediments or soils. It can. And the last one really I've seen is it's a very thin, light plastic, sometimes found in the grocery store, and it has crackers, contains crackers or cookies or small fruit loaves. And I've actually seen a man successfully for years sample loess with these thin plastic food containers. So there's something to watch for in your groceries to see if that might work for you. The things I wouldn't recommend ever are, don't go for steel at Kubiena. Steel is extremely hard to cut through and extremely dramatic. When it hits the blade, it sends sparks. So don't try to use steel in your Kubiena boxes. Or steel electric boxes are worse because they're heavy, thick, walled material in the box. Spam containers have come through when you're desperate and you want a sample. I can understand it, but I'd rather have you plan ahead, bring your materials. The other one, of course, which is terrible, is plastic guttering. It's thick walled plastic, and in our resin mixes with the acetone, oftentimes it will distort in the resin, and you chance it distorting your samples in the same way. So I'd stay away from plastic guttering. Also causes desperate trouble on the saw. I know that these type of things, which you can get, for food containers, are terribly tempting. I mean, this one I've kept, but if you notice, it's fairly thick plastic. And again, I do worry and wonder whether this would warp while you try to impregnate your soil and sediment within. I suppose, if you're willing, you could give it a try, because it also comes with the top. But just be aware of the problems it might cause. And really, that's pretty much it. Please stay away from silver duct tape to wrap samples in. Some people have done that, where they've cut a sample, wrapped it in cling film, and then they have wrapped it in silver duct tape. Silver duct tape causes disaster when you try to impregnate the sample in a bigger plastic container for impregnation. The glue of the duct tape runs white in the resin, and it really doesn't allow the resin to flow into the sample. Stay away from that. Go for brown parcel tape. That's pretty much it. I would say only that in shipping, try to wrap plenty of material around your samples if you're going to send it away, with bubble wrap, with newspaper. You should be able to pack your box with all these things, turn the box upside down, and nothing will move. That's the real test. So if you're going to recommend people sending you material, or you sending material to some lab, the test is, can you wrap it so well that if you were to turn the box upside down, you'd hear nothing move? There you go. That's my challenge. All right. That's enough for now. And we're going to move on to just looking at a bit of impregnation details.